So Marvel Studios Animation have released the trailer for their latest project, Marvel Zombies, which is now set to be their first bona fide mature content project. Interesting. Obviously, this is not Marvel Studios' first foray into that as a whole, following Deadpool and Wolverine last year, Daredevil Born Again this year, and I think Werewolf by Night and Echo on Disney Plus may have been TV mature as well. But having just watched that new trailer, I was genuinely surprised how far it went. You have your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man ripping off like 20 zombie heads in one go, people getting chewed and sliced up. Like, they've really gone in on this. But it does represent the latest project from a division of Marvel Studios who've had a pretty mixed bag of releases. And honestly, I doubt we're gonna get the greatest piece of storytelling out of this. They'll probably just chuck the Watcher's eyes in the sky again to give it the illusion that there's some greater genius plan going on here. I know I don't typically make content on Marvel stuff, but I've consumed in the past. God, it makes it sound like I'm a user. I do 3D animation, and this, I mean, it makes sense to cover. It falls very in line to that kind of category for me. Now, it was along the launch of Disney Plus that it was announced that Marvel Studios would be dabbling with animation as part of this service, which of course makes sense. You want to build up that original content with the major brands, and Marvel does have a long history in animation, of course. You have the original 60s Spider-Man cartoon, some other less remembered efforts in between, and then the huge wave of Marvel cartoons in the 90s, which really paved the way for the big screen equivalent a decade later. God, it's weird to think that was only a decade distant. Across several series that would cross over with each other, you had the likes of Fantastic Four, Hulk, and then the big hitters. I'm of course talking about the X-Men series and the Spider-Man series, which we can particularly see as an influence in getting their noughties movies counterparts off the ground. This time is still seen as the golden age of superhero animation, particularly when you throw in Batman the Animated Series as well. It was good, with X-Men really being the closest Marvel got to that series' level of quality, which I guess is why they just did that again last year, but we'll get into that. Until the launch of Disney Plus though, Marvel had done a combination of more kid-friendly TV shows and then the more mature, straight-to-DVD movies for mature audiences. I know people often talk about the Doctor Strange one that they did, and the Planet Hulk adaptation is particularly interesting post-Thor Ragnarok, but then Sony of course completely changed what an animated Marvel project could be. It feels weird even bringing up Spider-Verse, to be honest, in this video, because it's just in its own league in comparison to every other animated Marvel project. All the more reason why it makes sense that Marvel Studios were tasked with overseeing their own animation projects when Disney Plus came along. And so it was announced that alongside the live-action series such as WandaVision, I remember those days, we would also be getting the first animated Marvel Studios production, and that would be What If? Based on the comic series with the same premise of what if things went differently for this particular hero, but this time in the context of the MCU movies? It's a cool premise, yet it already sounded like a lot of Disney Plus original content, you know what I mean? That being secondary bonus material. I feel like a lot of the original stuff on the service is there to add a sense of value for people who already have Disney Plus, rather than actually being the thing that people go, oh, I want to subscribe to Disney Plus because of this thing, you know? There's a difference there. Like, for me at least, Disney Plus is a library of all the Disney-owned movies I want to access to, and I'll occasionally dabble with the original content as if it was the disc 2 that came with the movies. Apparently we're talking in DVD analogies today, okay. Can you tell I'm a millennial? And that was really where What If sat for me, you know, it was the bonus features. And honestly, when I actually watched the series, that needle didn't really move on that. By design, it's doing alternative scenarios from the movies, so naturally, it's going to feel derivative. Throw in the fact that, honestly, I'm not a big fan of the animation style, and also it looks like a budget version of the scenes that we have already seen before. There are actually bits I like from the What If series, even whole episodes in fact, but I think that there's maybe just that uncanny quality to these cell animated versions of live action characters, where you can tell they are 3D characters painted with cell animation colors. And unlike the Spider-Verse blend we've seen in several projects, this one just doesn't look good to me. And similarly, I hate the Spider-Man TV show style as well. Like, I get that they probably didn't have a lot of money for this comparatively, but the character animation always just comes across as a bit stiff, and sometimes that just really doesn't match the voice performances in energy either.
Deuces. Parker out.
And then we have the stories. In summary, there's a couple genuinely great ones, a few decent ideas, and then a whole lot of not so decent ones. Like, you have Peggy Carter being the super soldier, and then just Thor having a wild night out. Which, if you ask me, just didn't seem wild enough a premise to be its own alternative timeline. That's just something that mainline Thor could have done anyway. And even with some of the more interesting scenarios, it was rare for them to actually stick the landing. Even the zombies episode that's gone on to be the backdoor pilot for a full series felt kind of one note on delivering its premise without much else to it. They need to have more going for it than what we saw in that episode. Particularly with the usual Marvel quippy dialogue being particularly undercutting of the stakes in that episode. You have these characters facing the death and undeath of most of their friends and loved ones, it's the end of the world, and their reaction just comes across as, oh my god, there are like zombies now! Pachoo, I don't know, was that Iron Man? I don't know what that was pretending to be, but oh well. And it's not even quippy dialogue, it's just plain silly at times. Ant-Man being a Futurama head in a jar being the epitome of that silliness. If you're doing a whole series with this zombies premise, you're gonna need to take the stakes a bit more seriously in the midst of tongue-in-cheek Spider-Man mass decapitation. As for the season finales that tie all the what-ifs together, I have to say the God-powered Ultron was a highlight. Hey there, thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already for more, potentially, Marvel content. It's not my usual lane of stuff, I usually do 3D animation, but this lines up, so we're doing it today. I'd love to hear if you think I should do more of this. I could, we'll see. And now let's get on to the second half of Marvel Zombies, of all things. I have to say, the God-powered Ultron was a highlight. That was pretty cool. However, it fundamentally changed the series from just this disconnected Elseworlds thing to just yet another interconnected MCU where everything's combined. Like, does everything have to be connected? I guess it's kind of callous of me to say that to the Marvel, Mr. Connected, So anyway, that's just where I am on What If, which represents the majority of Marvel Animation's filmography. It's 3 seasons that just gained less interest as they went on, leaving me to wonder whether it was actually a success. Because if that was just what we were getting from them, I'd call Marvel Animation a bit of a failed experiment. But maybe it was always meant to be experimental, to pilot ideas that have enough of a thrust to get a full series. I guess that is kind of where we're at. Although if you add in this year's releases in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man and Eyes of Wakanda, and I'd still say the exact same thing. Yeah, it was a failure. I mean, I only half realized those two came out this year. And it's a shame because I heard some decent things about the Spider-Man one, despite the visuals. I question its premise in having yet another animated Spider-Man universe where you see a giant Spider-Verse shadow to stand in, but hey, they went for it in all of its retro glory, and not a lot of people watched it. Likewise, that Wakanda series, that came out this year. Did they even publicize it? What was it even about? It was clear that each project was getting less and less attention on the Disney Plus platform, with the exception of one. Because Marvel Zombies isn't the first time Marvel Animation has brought something back from the dead. Because in comes X-Men 97, for when the original stuff you're making isn't working. It's the old Disney nostalgia bait special. And the annoying thing is, not only did it work, but it showed how Marvel Animation could be so much more. With an animation style that blended well with the original X-Men series, but also advanced it. And better still, looked nothing like the bland house style in all the other animation projects. Marvel Animation actually made an interesting animation choice, which is wow! More of that, please! I think that's where part of my disappointment in Marvel Zombies comes from, because it looks more like that of What If animation, when there was an opportunity to be far more creative with it. Like what Sony does.
I did this.
Creative choices. I would have rather seen an evolved version of the X-Men 97 style, honestly. But considering they're doing the what if thing with the on-screen cast voicing the characters, it's apparent that Marvel Zombies is actually more MCU zombies, right down to the zombie Thanos. Okay. Which is where I go back to X-Men 97 again, because it's probably the most popular thing they've done, and it has zero ties to the MCU movies. It was the first time that Marvel animation didn't feel derivative of the movies. It was directly continuing something else that existed before, but it proved that Marvel animation was now more than the MCU bonus features. The first true all-round success critically and audience-wise too. The damn thing got an Emmy nomination! It's why it's a shame that Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man wasn't more successful, as clearly that was the next step in giving the studio its own identity. A project that wasn't even tied to a pre-existing series and was seemingly well received too, and yet it just didn't get the same attention that X-Men 97 did. If anything, its attempt to do something different only showcased further that Marvel Animation is ultimately still in the shadow of its parent company and franchise. To the extent that this Spider-Man series, trying to be its own thing, just felt random in the wider Marvel Studios house. People wondering why Tom Holland wasn't the voice and all that. It almost feels too late to make Marvel Animation its own thing, as people now expect anything Marvel Studios to have that MCU connection in some way. Except for when it's something like X-Men 97 that has a clear connection to something else. Plus again, you have Sony already having the definitive voice in animated Spider-Man fare at the very moment, as much as, you know, they're delayed to hell and back. You could argue that the wider general public's understanding is that Tom Holland's Peter Parker is the current live-action Spider-Man, whilst Miles Morales is the current definitive animated Spider-Man. In other words, who's this retro-looking kid on Disney+? I'm sure Marvel Zombies will be amongst the more successful projects, although maybe not so much with younger viewers whose parents have worked out the Disney Plus parental locks. And maybe that'll be the future of Marvel Animation, prioritizing big event projects like this and X-Men 97. I know some people have asked for them to relive the 90s Spider-Man, including the original voice actor, so maybe that's just it. Event series based on the MCU and then a nostalgia drip for the 90s kids. Which is fine, but it just feels like a lot of wasted potential. Plus, Marvel Studios as a whole hasn't been so hot in the 2020s across the board, which again had the finger of blame pointed at Disney Plus for overstretching the studio's resources and quality control. And whilst their last couple of movies have actually been well received, financially, it is a bit of a different picture. I mean, I haven't seen them, and I'm the movie guy. It's just not on my priorities right now. Either way, that is at least our one-off surprise mini-episode about Marvel. I have no idea how well this video is going to do, because it's a little out of my lane, but 3D animation, it is in my lane. Whatever the case, I'd best end it off there, and so I will. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. Do tell me your thoughts on Marvel Zombies. Are you a Marvel fan? I haven't really worked out the demographic of my audience in that regard. I assume you know Marvel in its highs and haven't watched it in months, years. That seems to be the standard trajectory. I'm the same. And hey, maybe I'll cover more Marvel stuff in the future. Let's get some thoughts out on it. But otherwise, I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and more, and I shall see you all in a little bit. Cheerio!